We did our first 5 and 2 training in Congo back in the fall of 2012. At some point, it was around 2015, through our partners John and Toast, they really got a vision for how this could be carried out in a more organized fashion. So they started to put together teams of volunteers and just taking it to the streets and the villages.
But ABCD focuses on the assets that are available in the community. And it's a very good way to make people aware of the resources that they have in their community and to build from those resources, from those assets, to change the community, to change their living conditions, and to move forward to better living standards.
What do you have? And then work from there.
Have different glasses coming to tell you, okay, can you see how it's working, and probably make different decisions.
And so now, this past trip, we realized, and this is getting some traction, we kept stumbling into communities where the effects of our training are being seen. We happened to be out in Kikwit, out in the countryside, and there's a once-a-week flight that goes back to the city, and we had missed it. The plane had been commandeered by the military or the government, and we ended up having to make this 12-hour drive back to Kinshasa. So we're about halfway there. We stopped in this town of Kenge, and there was a church community there. They'd heard we were coming through, so they had prepared some bananas and some peanuts, and we sat under the tree, as you do in Africa, and we got chatting. They mentioned that earlier in the year, they had actually received the training, this 5 and 2 training from our partner agency, from John and Toast and their volunteers. They shared with us this beautiful story of how the training process happened. They came together as a community. They spent time recognizing their assets, what God had given them. They began to envision possible development outcomes, how they could start with what's in their hand.
Après la conférence, lors de la formation, nous avons fait comprendre à la communauté qu'ils devaient utiliser tout ce qu'ils ont comme atout pour apporter le développement au sein de leur famille, au sein de l'église, au sein de toute la communauté. Ici, quand on a fait la cartographie des atouts, on avait remarqué que nous avons les intellectuels, l'église a de la terre, il y a de l'espace, et on pouvait faire beaucoup de choses pour apporter le développement au sein de la communauté à partir des atouts qu'ils ont sans tenir compte d'abord de l'apport extérieur. Et après, ils ont fait l'identification de leurs atouts. Ils ont fait les plans d'action. Parmi les projets ou les plans d'action, il y avait la construction d'un centre de santé. Alors, les mois sont passés, nous sommes repassés ici pour voir ce qui a été fait à Kenge. Et nous sommes dans la joie de voir que les plans d'action tels parmi qu'ils avaient arrêté pour commencer, au moins le centre de santé est là.
Kenge, c'est une nouvelle cité où ça a eu la structure d'une ville, ça ne fait pas longtemps.
We always say, when we do our training, to start small and just focus on the low-hanging fruit, and that's what they did. They started by getting the whole community to put a few of their Congolese francs together for a small church maintenance project. They wanted to just do some painting and kind of beautify the place a little bit. They fixed up some of the instruments, and they began planning around a future roof renovation. So that was a good start. The bigger outcome that they turned their attention to next was as they looked at their assets, they recognized that in a church of really all subsistence farmers, they had something unique, and that was 4 guys that were trained as nurses. And one of these nurses, in fact, had a bunch of medical supplies. He'd picked them up from various locations where he'd worked in the past, stethoscopes, different instruments, and even a microscope. They also had a building near the church that was being used as a guest house. So the next community work being involved fixing up this little hut and turning it into a medical center. And over the years, I've seen countless of these community health clinics in Congo with a well-intentioned health practitioner, no supplies, no medicine, and really not very functional. Or worse, they're clinics that are run on outside funding, and after the money dries up, the clinic disappears. So this was amazing to see that through the intervention of this whole community, they'd established this functional, though humble, health clinic They had a revolving medicine supply, trained nurses covering 24 hours a day, and they're able to deal with the common waterborne diseases and illnesses that come their way. They even had this small solar panel outside. They had it wired to a battery, and it was powering both the microscope and their computer that they were using for their administrative needs. It was all very impressive. And probably the most remarkable thing for me was just the passion and the vision that came out of these guys. And it was because they owned it. The community owned this project. They had skin in the game. They had invested in it, and they were proud of it. So looking forward, they had this vision for the future. They haven't even been in this a year, and they've already marked out this piece of land adjacent to the clinic, and they want to upgrade. They're recognizing as they look around in the community, there's no health clinics around, and if they can kind of provide a few more services and upgrade their facility, they can reach more and more people in the neighboring villages. So that's their plan. And it's so often what we see happens with these projects when they're asset-based and they're driven by the local community and they're starting with local vision. That's just the launch pad for all kinds of future endeavors.